everybody, and welcome to All Creatures Animal Hospital puppy class. So today's topic is kind of just like the top 5 questions that I typically get when it comes to having a new puppy. So I figured that I'd share those top questions, and I'd love to hear any questions that maybe you have or something that maybe I haven't addressed. I love seeing stuff in the comments once the video is posted, or you can message us. But I figured I'd go through kind of like 5 of the questions that are like a repetitive question that we get. And maybe do another one of these later on down the line with some other questions. So hopefully this is a question maybe you thought of asking and you didn't. And you get the answer to it. Again, welcome to All Creatures Animal Hospital Puppy Class. And it's Gabby again, one of the vet assistants at All Creatures. So one of the most common questions that we get is, what should I do if my puppy doesn't eat? So there's a couple of different things that you can do, especially with our little guys. It's really common for them to almost be scared of the bowl that we feed them out of. So sometimes trying to offer their food on the floor, on a paper plate or a paper towel, like a flat surface, isn't as intimidating as going into a bigger bowl where they kind of like almost fall forward into. So sometimes that helps. We do have that a lot where we'll offer, some kibble or wet food on the counter or something during your visit, and they, scarf it down. But then when you have a bowl present, they're not as interested, or they're not sure about the bowl, so it kind of freaks them out. And then they don't want to eat. So sometimes offering the food that way can help, as you start to transition them to eating out of the bowl. You can try that. If you're not already, you can mix wet and dry kibble together. So sometimes if you're just offering dry kibble, adding a little bit of wet gives it some extra flavor, different texture, and they're more interested in it. So you can always do that. You can also try heating up the wet food slightly. So you don't want to heat it up too hot because it can get pockets where it can be extremely hot. We don't want them to burn, their mouth or anything. So maybe for like 10 seconds, but just enough to give it a little bit of smell. Sometimes that can help make it a little more interesting. So you can try heating up the wet food, either giving the wet food by itself or mixing it with the dry kibble again. That's always an option. You can also add water to the food to soften the kibble and make the wet food a little soupier. So you can soften the kibble and make the wet food a little soupier. Sometimes that interests them. Every puppy is different, so you may have to try a few of these things to see exactly what it is that they're interested in, whether it's, that they want to smell the food better and make it more, appetizing to them, or you need to add some water to it to make it a little soupier because the chunks are too big depending on the food you get. So you may have to go through a couple of these things to figure out what appeals to them the most. And then the last thing is, if you've tried all these things and none of them are successful, or you still feel like they're really not eating as good as you want them to be, you could do a slow transition to a different brand of food. So you never want to do a cold turkey switch because that can upset their stomach. So maybe trying a different brand of food and mixing it in with their normal food, and see if maybe it's something that they're more interested in. Sometimes there's a particular ingredient in a brand of food that throws them off, that they don't like, and a different brand of food may not have that ingredient and it appeals to them. But these are some things to try, especially for our little puppies that are susceptible to being hypoglycemic, which means that their sugar drops because they're not eating enough. These are good things to try if you're struggling with them, to eat and be consistent on a food. When I do my puppy calls, if you have come for your first visit, you've probably received a voicemail or a call from me in regards to, just seeing if you have any questions or concerns with potty training, things like that. And I do email a puppy pack. And that does have a great article called not transitioning, but navigating the pet food aisles. And it talks about different brands of food and, different brands that you could go and look at, and kind of, just navigating all the different brands of foods that are out there, because I know it can be really overwhelming. So that is a great article that's part of the puppy pack. If you didn't receive it in your email for some reason, just let us know. We can, email you again directly, or send you the list. But yeah, so that's always something that you can refer to as well to help if you come down to the option that you need to transition to a different food. So that is definitely one big question that we get a lot. Another question is, how often should I bathe my pup? So I do get this a lot, and especially during potty training. It can require a lot of cleanup baths, depending on how things are going at home and their crate. But you really don't want to bathe your puppy more than once a week if you can help it. Obviously, if they have a big accident and you need to bathe them, you need to bathe them. But if you can, get away with not bathing more than once a week, maybe every other week, that would be ideal. Because bathing too often can cause their skin to dry out. They don't replenish the oils as fast as we do. So it can cause their skin to dry out and then become itchy. So we definitely don't want to do that if we can help it. So try to do a bath every week, every other week. You need to use a puppy tearless shampoo, so something that's really gentle, because if they're bouncing around and you're kind of getting them adjusted to baths, we don't want, any shampoo to get into their eyes to irritate them. So make sure that you are using a puppy tearless shampoo if you are bathing at home. And you can also get baby wipes or even a waterless shampoo for cleanups in between. So baby wipes are great, to wipe their feet off when they come inside, especially if it's been raining out and they're muddy. If they've stepped in an accident, you can kind of just use the wipe to wipe their feet off. And they're obviously less expensive than a puppy wipe. There's really no difference. It's just they make the wipes with a puppy on it and it becomes more expensive. So baby wipes are definitely the cheaper option. And then they also have waterless shampoos, so like a little spray you can use either with a baby wipe or a towel or something to clean up in between. And they have different like colognes and stuff that you can spray on them if you don't like the smell of dogs. I have had that where people don't like the smell of how a puppy smells. So if that does bother you, you can use a waterless shampoo or cologne in between. But I do get this question a lot, so try not to do more than once a week, and try to push it out every 2 weeks or so. I used to do my dogs, or as far as like bathing them, I would do it like once a month, but they were pretty clean, and obviously this was after the puppy stage. So yeah, this is kind of a good reference and just some kind of ideas for you to have to use in between as well. So no more than once a week. Don't want to bathe too often so we don't dry their skin out. Make sure you're using a puppy tearless shampoo, and then you can use the baby wipes or waterless shampoo for cleanups in between, especially if they're making a mess or happen to get into something they're not supposed to. So those are always a great option to have on hand. So another big question, number 3, is it normal for my puppy to eat their poop? And it is a normal thing, not that it should be acceptable, but it is something that puppies do happen to do for whatever reason. But it is normal. So I know it's gross and I think it freaks a lot of people out, but we obviously want to do our best to make sure that they're not eating it, because we don't want them to reinfect themselves if we're treating at the time for a possible intestinal parasite like Giardia, Coccidia, things like that. We don't want them picking up anything as well. So we want to do our best to make sure we're either cleaning up the accident quick enough to where they're not having that opportunity to eat their own poop, and trying to redirect them in a positive way to not do that. There is a product called Forbid, which is a little powder, and I put a picture of it here. You can find it. You can get it at the clinic. We typically carry it in stock, so that's something you can ask about. You can get it on Amazon, Chewy, PetSmart, Petco. I'm pretty sure there's other brands of something similar that you could look up, but I've, used Forbid before, and it's just a powder that you put on their food, so easy to do. You're not having to try to give them a pill or anything, and it alters the taste, when it goes through their GI system to make the poop taste bad, which why it doesn't taste bad in the first place is, baffling to us, but to them, I just think, especially with their amazing sense of smell, I think they probably just smell some of what they smell when it comes to their food, and, it's not like they understand that it's really gross like how we do to reason like that. So, it's just something that they do grow out of eventually. So you just have to be patient, do your best to either use a product like this or just be quick with cleaning up, to try to get through this little phase until they get old enough where it's not as big of an issue. It doesn't mean, for them to eat their poop, I've heard, does it mean they're not getting enough nutrients, like where their food isn't good enough or they're not eating enough. No, it's just a puppy thing. It's just a weird habit that they get into. It doesn't mean necessarily that they don't have enough ingredients if you're on a proper food. They get all of their nutrients and things like that that are made into the food where you don't have to worry about doing any extra supplements. So it is definitely not in regards to anything like that. You can find some weird like theories on the internet, but it's just a weird habit. It's something that is very common for puppies to do, but obviously we want to do our best to make sure that they don't do it and to, redirect them from that habit and not think it's okay to eat it. But yeah, so I just wanted to put this because I do get that question a lot, and I think some people are almost like embarrassed to mention it because they think it's gross, and I've had puppies, it's happened to me. So it's not like you're the only person that goes through this. It is completely normal. So I know it's not the nicest topic to talk about, but I did want to bring that up in today's little PowerPoint because it is something that, we do come across where people mention. Another thing, we've talked a lot about flea and tick prevention, and I just think it's always great to reiterate how important this is. And a lot of people, ask, does my dog need to be on flea, tick, and heartworm prevention if they barely go outside? I've heard that a lot because, they feel like, oh, well, if they're mostly in the house, they don't need it. They're not exposed to any other dogs. They never play with them. Other dogs, they don't go to boarding, all of these things. But, it is important. Yes, they need to be on a preventative. Fleas and ticks can be carried into your home on your clothing without you even realizing it. So even though your dog is in the house, 20 hours a day, besides the times you take them out to go to the bathroom, there's still a chance that you could walk by a dog in the neighborhood that's infested with fleas and you happen to bring a flea in on your clothing. And then fleas can multiply quickly and cause an infestation in your home. They can lie dormant in carpet and any kind of fabric. And ticks can, jump onto your clothing as well and be carried into your home. So to prevent, any kind of infestation as well as making your dog itchy and causing an issue for them and for you, it's best to be on a flea and tick preventative all year long. Again, like I've mentioned before, it never gets cold enough in Georgia for fleas to become dormant and not be around, so being on a flea and tick preventative all year long is a must. So yeah, I can't stress that enough. So, it's just things you don't think of if you move into a new apartment and somebody had a dog previously there that, had fleas, and you move into an infested home that you don't even realize. If you're not on a preventative, it just becomes harder to handle as far as, you know, trying to get rid of the fleas if your dog is not on a prevention, in addition to being in an infested home, or, you know, they happen to pass by another dog that's infested, because even though you're doing what you should for your dog doesn't mean that everybody is on top of it as well. There's a lot of different flea and tick options. I know, you know, sometimes financially it can be hard, but to be on something, you know, you can get doses for a month at a time. You can do, you know, more than that if you want, but just to make sure that they're on top of a flea and tick prevention is super important. And there's so many options that we can do to help, you know, with fit into budgets and things like that as well. I know right now it's a hard time financially, so I totally understand, but flea and tick preventative is super important. Same with the heartworm prevention. So mosquitoes are the ones that transmit heartworms and can sneak into your home as well. I've had plenty of times throughout my life where you never see a mosquito in your home, but you wake up with a mosquito bite and you're barely outside. So mosquitoes can, you know, happen to follow you inside when you open the door, open a window, and just one bite from a mosquito that is carrying heartworms can give your pup heartworms, and that's an extremely expensive treatment. So making sure that you're on heartworm prevention all year long as well is super important. Um, you can, you know, it never gets cold enough again for mosquitoes to disappear here. And even in a lot of states that do have, you know, really cold winters are still recommending staying, you know, on a preventative all year long, because you just never know. You know, the weather fluctuates. You go from being really cold and all of a sudden it gets warm enough for mosquitoes or fleas and ticks to be out and about again. So you know, it is something that we just recommend being on all year long. And same, you know, we have many different products that can, you know, fit into different budgets as well. So there's lots of different products that we can help recommend, you know, to make sure that your pup is covered at all times. And then I just put on here, you know, puppies can start on flea, tick, and heartworm prevention as early as 8 weeks. So when you do come in for your first visits, that's why we get you started on a flea, tick, and heartworm prevention, or at least a heartworm prevention, depending on what we have in the clinic. So whether it's Interceptor, Revolution, we're getting you started on something so that your pup has, you know, the best start in life, and to help you so that you can do your research, because there are a lot of products out there. I do have a previous video on our Facebook page here and on our YouTube channel that goes more in depth on flea, tick, and heartworm preventions that you can check out if you're interested, to see what the different products we recommend and have, and just kind of get more information, get a little more familiar with that, but you can always do that as well. Another big question I get is, how much do puppies sleep? Because I always get this question, is it normal for my puppy to be sleeping all the time? You know, they just nap, they don't do a whole lot. Well, these guys are growing super fast. So, you know, in the process of a year, you know, when you think about dogs are aging for every year, it's about 7 years in human years. You know, they're doing a lot of growing. They're going from a baby to like a preteen in a very short amount of time. So their body is developing at a rapid pace. They're growing, especially our bigger babies. They're getting taller. You know, they're losing teeth, getting adult teeth. So there's a lot that their body is doing, which requires a lot of sleep and rest. So, you know, a lot of the time puppies will eat, poop, play, and sleep, and that's really all they do for a good portion of their puppyhood. Puppies can sleep anywhere from 15 to 20 hours a day, so as long as they're eating, their attitude is great, and they're having normal bowel movements, and they're continuing to gain weight, it is completely normal for them to sleep and do a lot of napping. They're constantly growing, so lots of rest is needed, so it's not something that you should stress out about. You know, if they are really lethargic and they're not eating as much, not having normal bowel movements, maybe having diarrhea, you know, losing weight instead of gaining weight, those would be obvious concerns where you should contact us and let us know so that we can see if something else is going on. But if their energy is great when they're awake and they're eating and drinking normally, having normal bowel movements, gaining weight at their appointments, and also you can see that they're growing on a daily basis, then it's not something to be concerned. You know, they can sleep, that's completely normal. It's just like, you know, having a baby at home, a human baby that does a lot of sleeping. It's the same concept for these guys, so that's completely normal. So I just wanted to kind of go over these, you know, few questions that I feel like we get a lot and see if maybe it was a question that you had that you were scared to ask, or, you know, no question is too silly for us. You know, we know that sometimes these are people's first experience with dogs, so we're here to help and want to guide you in the right direction. So if you do have a question, something that maybe you'd like to include in our next segment, our next little PowerPoint, you know, please reach out, let me know. If there's a question that you want to ask me personally, just give us a call at the clinic and we can set up a time for me to give you a call and I can go over any questions or concerns. But we're here to help. We want to make having a puppy the easiest thing for you, and where, you know, you feel like you're being guided and helped in the right direction. You know, that's what we're here for. So I hope these little questions helped and maybe answered a question that you've been holding on to that you haven't asked yet. And we will be back next week with another PowerPoint and another puppy class. So thank you for joining, and I hope you guys